All right. Welcome into Toilets to Titles. This is a special bonus episode. This is now about them Cowboys. I'm talking 2022 Dallas Cowboys training camp. And I'm with my man once again. He's been gracious enough to join us, and that is Kyle Youmans of DallasCowboys.com. Talking Cowboys, the draft show, pre and post game. Man, this guy is just grinding. I just watched him walk in from the beach, though, so he's definitely enjoying himself. Kyle, how are we doing this evening, man?
Man, it's fantastic. I hope you can hear me okay,
Yeah.
because it's going a little bit in and out. You're right. I mean, it's right off the beach. We just filmed our last show of the day after doing a 2-hour broadcast of the practice from Oxnard, California. So it's been a little bit back and forth. I'm getting the chance to work with one of my new favorite guys here with the team, and Patrick Walker. And I mean, we've got a whole crew putting all this content together, and it's been a blast, like you said. But it's a grind at the same time. I mean, Cowboys Nation expects the best. We all know that.
Yes.
So
yes.
We've got to provide the best wherever we can.
Man, yeah, and Patrick, if you guys are listening at home, I believe his Twitter handle is at Voice of the Star. So I'm sure if any of you are watching the show, I'm sure you're very familiar with him, and you want to make sure you go follow Kyle at Kyle_Youmans. I'm sure you're familiar with him as well. And Kyle, he's there on site. Like, you were there, you're on Oxnard, you're doing the damn thing. All right. And me, and a lot of us, we're just at home. We're like, there's a plate full of clips, and we're just trying to eat them up. We got the spoon of Zeke, and we're trying to eat those things up, and we're trying to digest it. But you're actually seeing it. You're seeing, as much as they'll let you see. So I got a few questions I want to discuss with you. I know you got got some important Dallas Cowboys stuff going on after this. So we're going to get you in. We're going to get you out. I want to talk vibes, man. I'm a big vibes guy. Vibes are important. And I think with the Dallas Cowboys, one of the biggest things I notice with them, like, they can get up real quick and they can get down real quick. And I feel like when they're down, it kind of just rolls downhill. So what's the vibe seems like right now in Oxnard as compared to when the season ended?
Yeah, I really think there's a little bit of a chip on the shoulder sort of vibe. Almost, I don't want to say frustration. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is you don't want to say that you're frustrated, because even though there is a bit of frustration based off of the fact that the season ended the way that it did, and there was certainly a disappointing end, I really do think that there's just an added focus. There's an intensity to what this is, because I mean, if you look at it from it starts with the head coach. It starts with the fact that he's got to win here in 2022, or else, I mean, there's some conversations about whether or not he will be the coach next season. So I think it starts from the top, and it trickles all the way down. I mean, Dak Prescott has people that are doubting what he could do as quarterback. These wide receivers are so young. There's so much going on from their standpoint of things, to where they may not have the same sort of caliber as they had in 2021. So there's a couple of different things that you can't necessarily do, or you can't necessarily say are the number one. And by the way, my entire team is getting in the car right now. I'm a little distracted. Alex is back
All
here
right,
singing.
no problem. Yeah, good.
But that's okay. Yeah, you did forget I'm on a podcast. How about that? That's Alex Lilly. He's the guy who's usually behind the camera. And this is Scott Purcell. This is Boss Man, and then you've got Patrick Walker in the back.
Heck yeah.
The star. But man, kind of
the
back to what I was saying. The fact of say that again.
I said it's the Avengers of DallasCowboys.com.
The Avengers. I like that. But yeah, it's an intensity that I don't think they had it last year, because last year it was a hopefulness. That's not necessarily the case. There is hope, but it's more of a mission than it is a hoping. It is probably the best way to describe the way that things feel around Oxnard.
Yeah, because I can definitely see them not being so happy, so lucky, because happy, so lucky got them thumped by the Broncos and then thumped by the 49ers. And it seems like they're trying to just change the overall toughness of this squad. It seems like that's the direction they're going. That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm seeing. And I love it. I'm a defensive guy. Give me like a game that finishes 13-10. I'll take that. I'll take that for 17 weeks, because I love defensive football, and I'm getting excited about what I'm hearing about this defense. But before we get into the defense, I do want to talk about the offense. I know James Washington went down. He got injured. I was actually listening to Bobby Belt and Brian Broaddus on their show, and Broaddus was saying that people were telling him, like, people are overreacting about Washington going down. Like, the Cowboys aren't necessarily concerned about losing. I don't know if that means Michael Gallup's coming back quicker than we expected, or Vasher's playing, or the new cat they brought in from the USFL, or we got Jalen Tolbert. So how does the offense look, after a few weeks in camp?
I think if there's really a concern, it would be more so up front than it would be with the wide receivers. I really do think that outside of the starting four guys that you feel really comfortable in, and that's Tyron Smith, or I would even say three guys: Tyron Smith, Tyler Smith, and then Zach Martin. I mean,
how quickly he gets added to that list. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the fact that he's continuing on, but even he's not getting sole first team reps. But I do feel comfortable that he will win that job at some point throughout this training camp and into the preseason. My biggest thing is can Terrence Steele do what he did last year? He's had kind of a rocky training camp, hasn't necessarily looked clean. He's been just look at today's practice, for instance. He had a rough day against Micah Parsons. He had a rough day against Dorrance Armstrong, DeMarcus Lawrence. Now, those are your best edge rushers, and he's getting valuable reps against those edge rushers. But I wasn't necessarily impressed from what we saw there. And then after that, it's a slew of guys that don't necessarily look like they're ready for the challenge. I mean, Josh Ball is getting every rep as a swing tackle, both at right, both at left tackles, and he's going back and forth. And he hasn't necessarily taken advantage of those yet. He's had some rough practices over the last couple of weeks in kind of replacing Matt Waletzko, who was in that same conversation, that same competition to win the swing tackle job. So I think there's a shortage of tackles at the moment that should be a little bit concerning. The wide receiver position specifically, I think there was something to do with the fact that James Washington going down. It's worrisome, but it's not a panic button moment just yet. Don't necessarily think it's going to remain that way. There might be a chance they hit the panic button. They get to the preseason and Jalen Tolbert doesn't necessarily perform the way he does. Dennis Houston doesn't necessarily do what he's been doing in training camp when the lights come on. I mean, there are multiple ways that the panic button could be hit by the time the preseason's over with. I just don't think Dallas is worried to get to that a high name free agent, a big name free agent. You got to find a way to kind of balance the expectations with the growth of some of these young guys, and they're letting the growth happen before they actually go and make a move.
My man Nino, he's a big Turpin fan. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name. He's very new. We got him from the USFL. I know he won the MVP over there. He's a return specialist. How tall is he, and what is the likelihood he actually makes an impact on this roster?
He's 5'9", and that might even be a little bit generous if we're being honest. Patrick, what do you think Turpin is if you had to put him on tape?
If I had to put him on tape, as far as comparisons go,
yeah,
I'd say he's closer to a Deshaun Jackson in his prime, but not quite at that particular level. But if we're talking about
skill sets,
the skill set, the lane that he operates in right now, he's somebody that can be a return ace. But where he and Deshaun differ is in that Deshaun had proven himself as a wide receiver threat. Now, you love what you saw from Turpin in the USFL. Obviously, won MVP honors. He was the leader in receiving yards there. Can he bring that over to the Cowboys in a situation where they need help at wide receiver?
I honestly, I couldn't agree more in the fact that he's going to get a chance to make an impact offensively. They're going to allow him to try and win a job as one of the fourth or fifth wide receivers on the roster, and that doesn't include the guys that are hurt in Washington and Gallup. He's going to be on the back end of that roster, I think, at least to start depth chart-wise while those guys are hurt. It's whether or not he can stick there as a return specialist, and can he be productive enough to where it's worth a roster spot. Because you see guys like on the defensive side of the football that don't necessarily play defense, but they're special teams guys. CJ Goodwin, the most noted, that he significantly plays on special teams, but he doesn't necessarily play on defense a whole lot. Kevontae Turpin can do the same thing on the offensive side of the football if he's that valuable as a return man. But he's got to be perfect as a return man. He's got to be dangerous, which he is. He's quick. He is shifty. He is slippery. John Fossil even talked about the fact that he is a shorter player, 5'9" and under, to where he's kind of tough to see behind guys running down the field on special teams. Yeah, John Fossil says snack size. Patrick says snack size. I mean, it's the fun-sized guy that you could put on special teams, and it makes things tough for an opponent to try and make a move. So there's some excitement around him. I don't know if it's necessarily if he would live up to the hype that he's gotten since he got signed. But if you're asking me if he's going to make an impact, I do. I think he will make an impact, and it's going to come quickly throughout this preseason. You're going to see number 2 utilized quite a bit.
Excellent. So that's a DFS play. If you're a degenerate like me, you're playing DraftKings, that's a guy you want to put in your roster. I'm also putting Vasher in because I'm seeing him make plays. But I want to touch on one more thing on the offense before we move on to the defense. And a lot of us guys at home, guys and girls, Dallas Cowboys fans, we're watching clips. We're seeing Dak. We're seeing these throws. Seems like there's a lot of underthrown footballs. I know that Dak, in the past, he's a gamer. Like he turns it on. He's not necessarily a practice player. Are we concerned about this, or has he looked fine and we're only seeing, these underthrown balls, like, and it's just a small thing, or is it an issue?
I'm not going to lie to you. I don't think I heard a single word you just said because the connection is back and forth. Is it my connection? Is my connection bad?
It must have been, yeah, because I'm. It looks like I'm good. I'm wired in, but I was basically just saying that we're on the internet, we're watching a lot of videos, we're seeing Dak, and it seems like he's got a bunch of underthrown footballs. Is this a concern, or is it just chalk this up to Dak not being a practice player?
Okay, let me try and figure this out because hop on Wi-Fi and try and make it work. If that makes things better. Sorry about this.
No sweat, you're good. You're good. So you cut out for a second, but I caught the end of that. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. We're almost back to the camp, and I can get Wi-Fi, and it'll be much better. We're about 3 minutes out at the moment, so
okay.
let me try and get back to that, and then I will jump right back on, and it'll be a little bit better for you.
All right, you're good. All right, I will stall. All right, so you take your time.
For me. Yeah,
you're
good. 4 minutes.
You're good. Yeah, you're good. I got guys in the chat, so I'm gonna reach out to them. So I know Joe's saying I need to know from a fantasy perspective how to reconcile the Cowboys' number 2 and 3 wide receivers to start the season with Gallup and James Washington hurt. So Joe, I don't really necessarily. So with Gallup hurt, I think that's more of a concern than James Washington. I don't think he's going to be very fantasy relevant. I think if he wasn't hurt, I still think he'd be the third guy, and that's with Gallup hurt. When Gallup comes back, I'm hearing buzz that Michael Gallup is actually he's told the team he ain't going to make week 1, but I heard they have the Cincinnati Bengals circled, and it's likely that he's going to come back week 2. So he steps right in as the number 2 receiver. You got CeeDee Lamb, and I think at number 3, you're going to see, Noah Brown's looked great at camp. If you're looking for a third wide receiver, Vasher's looked good. Nino's guy, Turpin. There's going to be Simi Fehoko. You know what? We're going to need to see when they do roster cut downs. There's going to be a few guys on the bubble, a few of these wide receivers, and we're going to see, really in the past, we've had guys who look good at camp, and then they get an opportunity in a preseason game and they don't step up. I'm taking that guy, whoever steps up and gets the job done in preseason, that's the guy that I'm thinking is going to take, maybe that 3 slot until Michael Gallup comes back. And then he'll be moved to the 4 slot when Gallup's back, because you're going to have Tolbert. Tolbert's had his moments. He hasn't necessarily looked great yet, but I'm hoping as he grows, eventually he's going to be the locked-in wide receiver 3. And then whatever we get from James Washington, that's just going to be bonus. Like, that's not something that I think we're going to be able to bank on. And then Nino says, is Diggs looking slow, or is it just my eyes, man? So he did look. I wouldn't say he's slow. What I would say is, playing press man in one-on-ones, the wide receiver is usually always going to win 9 times out of 10. When Diggs is eating and when he's successful is when there's actually a pass rush and the quarterback's under pressure. That's when he's getting his W's at training camp right now. But I did see that he's 2 reps back to back. I know one of them was Simi Fehoko. I think the other one was CeeDee Lamb. And they were both vertical routes. They both cooked him. I think he got up on the line of scrimmage. He tried to press them again in one-on-ones, which is dangerous because the quarterback's going to have all day. He's going to have a clear lane to make the throw. So I don't think we should panic on Diggs, because besides those plays, in actual, lining up versus the offense in real game type situations, he's looked very solid. They're actually saying that the secondary, Anthony Brown, I've heard some people say that Anthony Brown has looked like the best defensive back. Like he's been the best defensive player at camp. I've heard people say that. So Anthony Brown's looking good. Jordan Lewis, like there's a lot of edgy, chippy guys in the secondary. Jaron Curse, my dude Marquise Bell, he's the rookie there. He's looked pretty good. And our defensive line is looking good. So I'm feeling pretty good about the defense. The question marks I have is actually with the offense. I think this defense is going to be set, which is funny, man, because if 365 days ago, you would have asked me where I was concerned, I would tell you I was concerned with the defense, and I thought the offense was going to be fine. And now this year, the other way around, I'm saying I'm 100% content with that defense, and I'm a little concerned about the offense, but I think Zeke is going to put us on our back. I think the line's going to be all right, and I think Dak's going to do just enough. What's your thought on Mukuamu? He was a safety, so I haven't heard much about him. Nashawn Wright, on the other hand, so they were two lengthy defensive backs. So Nino's asking me about it. I think it's Israel Mukuamu, safety. I think it was Oregon State. If I'm correct, correct me if I'm wrong, Nino. I'll see you in the chat there. But he's a lengthy guy. Dan Quinn, he really likes those guys that will smother you and make it hard for the quarterback to see the wide receiver get it through the window. I haven't heard much about him. This is his second offseason, but the other lengthy defensive back that they took last year, Nashawn Wright, I've actually heard Nashawn Wright has been playing better than Kelvin Joseph. And Kelvin Joseph is who they took in the second, and he hasn't been playing very well in training camp, but I have heard that Nashawn Wright's getting the job done. And he might see some reps, some actual game reps. So of the two, I know that wasn't your question, but my answer is I haven't heard much about Mukuamu. It's been Nashawn Wright. So the offense, we heard Kyle talking about. I did see some clips. Tyler Smith is an absolute unit. I've seen some clips of him just bodying people. He bodied Tristan Hill. Oh, he went to South Carolina. My bad. Maybe it was Nashawn Wright then that went to Oklahoma State. I got the two mixed up. But yeah, he body slammed Tristan Hill. I've seen him slam some other defensive linemen. What I loved seeing was I saw a clip today where they did a screen to Zeke and Tyler Smith was leading the way, and a defensive back, Jaron Curse, just ran up and just got swallowed. Like you make a business decision when you see that kid. He has some strong hands. You don't want to get popped by him. All right, so Joe, he says, seems so trendy going into the season to like Pollard as much, if not more than Zeke. Is Pollard poised to potentially have a Chase Edmonds-like season this year? In the past, I would say I wouldn't trust the Dallas Cowboys to be creative enough to be creative enough with their running backs to get them both touches. But I'm starting to feel a little more confident in it. I do think Pollard's going to have a big role. But we need to understand, Pollard wasn't even the featured back at Memphis. So the more touches they gave him, he started to get dinged up last year. So they need to be careful how many touches they give him. I could see him having a Chase Edmonds role. What I would like to see it was like Kamara's like first or second season. And forgive me if I compare Pollard to Kamara. He's like, Kamara is my favorite running back in the NFL. So that's a dude. But I'm just trying to compare situations. I'd like to see Pollard in that Kamara role and Zeke in that Ingram role. New Orleans did it like perfectly. The way they ran those two, I don't know if it was his rookie year or his sophomore year, they just ran it like perfectly. Just distribute those touches just like that. Because I can see Zeke, man, just he being that bruiser, getting 4.4 yards per clip, which is excellent, and then every now and then sneak in Pollard. I've seen clips of them actually having both backs in the backfield, and then go ahead and they throw they give the ball to Pollard, and then Pollard turns around and runs right behind Zeke. So Zeke's lead blocking for the guy. So that'll be interesting to see, because last year it was a little frustrating. It actually worked, but we had this guy McGovern, who's an offensive guard, and he's playing fullback, and that actually worked. But it'd be interesting to see Zeke at fullback position, because I think he can actually be a threat and he can touch the ball. All right, so we got Nino in there. How much with Ryan Neal will Ryan Neal help Zeke in running game this year? Ryan Nall, are you saying the running back who I believe they took from Chicago? I'm not sure if that's necessarily who you mean. But if you're saying as a guy to spell him, I think the guy that's going to spell the third back on the team is going to be Rico Dowdle. I think that's who's looked the best. Like they're actually saying, so fullback, yeah, So Ryan Nall, he was a running back, I believe, for Chicago. So they shifted him to fullback. I don't know. The only time we really ran fullback sets last year was with McGovern, who's a lineman. So I need to see it first. Zeke's never really, ran behind a fullback too much. He's ran behind a lineman playing in a fullback position. So, I don't know if they're going to use the fullback. We'll see. I think that they started to put it in last year, but it was kind of like a gimmick. So I don't know if it'll be a gimmick thing this year again, or if it'll actually be a staple, because I think it would be smart. If you have a good defense, you pound the rock, you get a little tougher. How are you going to get a little tougher? You're going to put a fullback in there. So they need to show me. We see a few preseason games. We see this guy out there at fullback, and then Rico Dowdle, who's their RB3, because we know Zeke ain't going to get any touches. That's what they've said already in preseason. The dude, he's not getting any touches. I doubt they give Pollard much, so it's going to be Dowdle. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in preseason and if they actually stick to it, because that's a new game plan. And I think that might make some sense too early on. If you only want to put two wide receivers out there, you got Tolbert or you got Noah Brown, CeeDee Lamb while you wait for Gallup to come back. You got Schultz, you got a fullback in the backfield. What is the status of Gallup? So George, you might be rolling it a little late, but what I've heard is they circled week 2 for Gallup. And I think that's why the Cowboys aren't necessarily panicking about with James Washington going down. I think that he already declared, he's not on the PUP, I believe. And they've said he's not going to be there week 1, but they've circled week 2. So there's a possibility he's back week 2. That might be hearsay. We'll probably hear some more as we get closer to the season, but that is the status. And it'll be nice to have him back, man, because him and Dak, they have a great connection. All right, my man is back. Kyle Youmans, I think I did a great job stalling for you, man. I touched on it all. How we doing?
Man, I'm sorry about that. I was so confident when I first hopped on that I thought the internet would stay, and then we started driving and we went kind of through like a rural area in between the beach and here. And in doing so, I just lost connection. I couldn't hear a single
California, word. Man, it's the California life. Now, are you on site right now? Is that the field behind you?
Yeah. You want me to show you?
Heck
so
yeah.
That's the field in the background. That's the big tower. Oh wait, opposite side. I gotta be a weatherman.
Okay.
Here. It's like the Jones Tower right there. There's
all right
background and stuff, but yeah, it's the practice field. The camp is back this direction. Like that's the weight room right here.
Okay. Okay.
A couple VIP tents and stuff. Like I'm kind of in a tent area that is downstairs. So, man, now I'm connected into the Wi-Fi, so I should have zero connection issues.
Excellent. So no big deal. Dude's in a VIP tent. He points to the Jones Tower like it ain't no thing. Can we explain why that's called the Jones Tower, just so everyone at home, in case they didn't know, just so they know?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's the Jones Tower right there. I did it again. Jones Tower right there, where that's where Stephen Jones, Jerry Jones, and everybody that's at least in that party, scouts, coaches, can go up there and watch practice from there. That way they can kind of get a bird's eye view of what is going on. So, yeah, I mean, it's a big time camp and lots of stuff going on for sure.
Excellent. All right. So let's I was just going to ask a quick question before you got cut out about Dak before we moved on to the defense. A lot of us are watching clips at home. Historically speaking, Dak is not a practice player. He's a gamer, but there are more times than not, I'm seeing clips of him underthrowing, especially earlier today. I saw one trying to hit Dalton Schultz. J-Rod Curse is right there. And it just seems like the ball placement has not been, where we'd like to see it. Has that just been what we're seeing? Does it seem like he's actually been okay and there's just a few instances of that, or has it been a little rocky? What are you thinking?
It's been up and down. I would even say a little rocky if I had to really lean one way or the other. If you're asking me if I'm worried about Dak Prescott, I'm really not. I think he's going to be just fine. The velocity on his ball is fine. I mean, the way that he throws to his guys on a normal basis, the zip is back from what he had prior to the injury. So I really do think this is it's a little bit of a different look because there's so many expectations around him to take that next step. A fully healthy offseason, not having any of the outside storylines to kind of play around with. But I really do think there is there's a chip on his shoulder from just the quarterback standpoint to kind of get the job done. And yeah, everybody's looking at every single little thing from Dak Prescott. That's what happens when you're the quarterback of the Cowboys. I don't think it's a worrisome deal. I think he's going to be just fine when you get to the games. But yeah, he's had some rocky practices. He's had some throws that have been underthrown or just completely missed some guys. It's not Devontae Smith trying to catch from Jalen Hurts bad, like the videos that have surfaced.
I like that. I like that.
It's not like that. It's just small little minute details that are going to happen in the first 2 weeks of training camp. We'll get to the point where he looks like Dak Prescott again soon. That's just that's the biggest goal. You got to get him back to that prior to week 1.
All right, I lied. I'm going to say one more thing about the offense. I apologize. CeeDee Lamb, is he an alpha? Has he established himself as the alpha?
No doubt in my mind. I've been super impressed with CeeDee Lamb this off season in general. I mean, even going back to mini camps and OTAs where he was able to take the next step and say, hey, this is my team now. This is my wide receiver room now. And being welcomed into the leadership committee, he's done everything right, man. And everything that I've heard from Dak, from the coaching staff, from Coach Prince as the wide receiver coach, he is the dude in that room. He is the youngest player on the roster, or youngest wide receiver on the roster, but he's the most looked up to. He's the most vocal. He's the guy who is stepping up to be a leader. And that is a huge, huge plus for him, because that was a huge question mark whenever there was nothing, or whenever the news of Amari Cooper started raining down, and they wanted CeeDee Lamb to take the step as a number 1 receiver. That was one of the biggest questions. How could he be a leader? He has certainly shown that. I'm really excited about what CeeDee Lamb's going to do this season.
All right. Can you give me a quick summary on the defense? I've heard Anthony Brown has looked great. I heard Jordan Lewis has been feisty. I heard, the defense, Osa, the defense is balling out. Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence. So what is your overall thought on how the defense has looked and how you expect them to play this season?
Well, I'll start up front because you mentioned some of the secondary guys, and I completely agree with you about Anthony Brown and Jordan Lewis, but the defensive line is the best that I've seen in a long time. I am really excited about what the defensive line is going to do, because you look at the edge rushers of DeMarcus Lawrence, Sam Williams, and even Dorrance Armstrong's had a great camp so far. I'm really pumped about what they can bring to the table with those guys on the interior, like an Osa and a Chauncey Golston. Tristan Hill's had a good camp too. I mean, even though a lot of people would like to say, hey, he's maybe on the cut line, he's had a great camp, and a lot of guys still look up to Tristan Hill and what he can bring to the table. So keep that in mind whenever you're looking at the cut downs and the rosters, because that defensive line is going to be some tough decisions on the horizon. Going back to the second level, I think Leighton Vander Esch has had the best camp of his career so far. I mean, you talk about flying to the football, being in the right place at the right time, making impact plays. Today, he tipped an interception to Trayvon Diggs initially, and then Diggs tipped it to Jayron Kearse. It was all 3 guys touched the football, and Kearse took it back for a pick 6. There's a lot of excitement around what he's going to bring from that second level now that they add an Anthony Barr and guys like that into the mix too. That linebacker core looks like it's destined to take the next step. And then the secondary, I talked about the secondary. I think the secondary is incredible. I mean, I really do. I think Trayvon Diggs has had some up and downs, but he's playing. He's got a target on his back this year, and it starts at the practice field. These wide receivers want to go after Trayvon Diggs. He's going to get the best of everybody on this field. Anthony Brown has gotten the best from a lot of guys, and he's turned around and played really well too. As much of the question marks that I have with the offensive line, I have with the running backs and the wide receivers on offense, it's the complete opposite on defense. I think this defense has a chance to be a top 5 crew immediately, not only in takeaways, but also in yards allowed. I really like the way that they're built and the way that Dan Quinn has that unit rolling.
Man, because it's tough. It takes a little bit for an offense to get going. So it's excellent the defense is hitting on all cylinders right now, especially when you go out the gate with the Buccaneers and with the Bengals. Like, that can carry us through, and that can help us get W's, early on.
Well, and that's the thing is, and people talk about this all the time, the defense will be ahead of the offense in training camp. It's like that every year because an offense is learning a playbook. You're learning so many different intricacies to the NFL season. But this year's just a little bit different, at least from what I've seen in the take I've had. Dominant. I mean, this defense has been it's been putting a chokehold on the offense to a certain extent. And yes, I mean, you can talk about the fact that they're missing wide receivers or the offensive line is thin. Even with the starters, even with the best receivers that you have on the field, this defense has been phenomenal. And I'm really excited about what Micah Parsons has as an encore. I think DeMarcus Lawrence is slimmed down. He's going to change his game up a little bit. There's a lot on that side of the football that people around the NFL, they know about, but they're not talking about it yet. And they certainly will be. I think that first week against Tampa, second week against Cincinnati are going to be huge tests on whether or not this defense is at the next level. But I do, at least from what I've seen, I do think they are there as well.
Yeah, all right. I want to talk on two defensive rookies. You mentioned Sam Williams. I actually haven't seen much about him, so I'd like to hear your input on how he's looked and how he's played. And also my guy Marquise Bell. I was real high on him coming out back in like February when we didn't know we were bringing back Jaron Curse. I said, this guy is Jaron Curse light. The dude is always around the football. When I watched this film, it was more so him coming downhill and making plays in the running game. But I want to hear how he's transitioned in the passing game. So talk about Sam Williams and then talk about Bell if you could.
Yeah, I'll talk about Sam Williams. And really, it's funny because you're right. Like Marquise Bell is like a Jaron Curse light, and Sam Williams is kind of like a Micah Parsons light. I mean, those two guys kind of mirror the guys that came before them in last year's system in terms of the measurables, the speed, the skill set. They're both very similar in that fact. I mean, Williams is not. He's not to a Micah level. Nobody's really at a Micah level. Let me go ahead and put it that way. But he does a lot of the same things. He can drop back off the line of scrimmage, which Dan Quinn asks of his edge rushers quite a bit, to go back in coverage and to at least be a little bit of a change of pace there. Then you also want him pass rushing and coming off the edge and providing wreaking some havoc in the backfield. He can do that at the same time. Going to Marquise Bell, I've been really impressed with his speed and his size. His straight line speed is fantastic. It's whether or not he can change direction. That's the biggest thing. He's a little bit slow in his movement from side to side. If he's able to go downhill, play downhill, he's fantastic. He's going to make a play. But if he's having to go in coverage, if he's having to back up or backpedal and go side to side, that's where he isn't necessarily as crisp as a Jaron Curse or a Malik Hooker or a Donovan Wilson from that safety spot. I think he still has some room to grow in that fact. But both of those guys, I mean, I think Sam Williams makes the team. I mean, that's kind of a second round pick. He's not even going to make the team. He's going to challenge, I think, with Dorrance Armstrong with a significant number of snaps as an edge rusher, just based off of what he could bring. And then with Marquise Bell, I think he's a borderline safety.
Sounds like a special teams player. If he's just good coming downhill, straight line speed.
If he makes the roster, that's why. If he makes the roster, he's going to be a special teams majority guy, and I think he could maybe work into the rotation at safety, but usually it's going to be the three guys. It's going to be Hooker, it's going to be Donovan Wilson, it's going to be Jaron Curse. They're grooming him to get into that fact, and I know they want him to be around it to see some snaps because, I mean, they were talking about drafting him later in in the weekend in April. Ultimately, they decided to try and bid for him, and the money does tell the tale. I think he will be on this roster in some capacity, but he's just going to be right there on the edge, and it's just based off of the numbers that are elsewhere that have been impressive so far.
Excellent. Hey, my man Nino's in the chat. He wants to send you a Toilets to Title shirt so you can rock it there. So I'll link up with you in the DMs after this. I got two more things. I'm going to let you go. I know you got dinner. I don't want to keep you too much longer. The first thing is the last Dallas Cowboys question I'll have. And I know we really can't necessarily talk. We talked about this before the show a little bit, and we don't really know. So it's Anthony Barr. We bring him in. What are your expectations of, what he'll do for us? And how soon do you think he'll start to kind of ramp up his activity?
Yeah, we don't necessarily have like a big timetable on what Barr is going to do initially. It's going to be, I don't think it would be this week at all. If he's even in remotely involved in the practices with Denver or even the preseason game, I would be absolutely shocked. I think earliest it would probably be the Chargers week, because you think about it, Mike McCarthy said it today. He's not dealing with an injury. He's dealing with a ramp-up period. And the Cowboys took 4 practices to get into a ramp-up themselves with the without pads and getting into a rotation there. He's on the PUP list, so it's going to take a little bit more than I think those 4 practices.
Right.
I think if anything, best case scenario, it would be prior to the Chargers game. If I had to guess, though, and really if you're telling me, hey, like, put money on it, I'd say he doesn't necessarily get off the PUP list until we get back to Dallas, until it's the week leading into the Seattle game and the final ramp up of the preseason before actually getting into the regular season and that kind of bye week right there. I think he would return by that point. But man, there's some excitement around it. I already told you about Parsons and Van Der Esch. They've been great. The availability of Jabril Cox has been super encouraging, just based off the fact that you didn't necessarily think he would be full go come training camp, and he's been great. And he looks healthy. He's cutting, he's moving, he's running the same way that he did prior to the injury. So with that being said, I think Anthony Barr is just another addition to that group that could really see an uptick from last year into this year, and that's that linebacking core. Barr being what he is as a veteran and a leader in that group, I think it's going to show itself even early on this season. If he can stay healthy, he's going to provide a lot of very skilled expertise for that second level that I think this team's going to benefit from.
What I really like about it is you're taking a strength and you're making it stronger.
Correct.
And that might seem like, it's not something that you necessarily need to focus on. Like, hey, let's put something into the offensive line, but what's out there? Let's put something into the wide receiver. What's out there? Like, there's not much out there. This dude, you look at his film and you look at what he's done in the past. Like, this guy can play, and you're putting him out there as a veteran leader. Leighton Vander Esch, he's going into year 5. I believe, so he's still fairly young in the NFL. We got Parsons going into year 2, Jabril Cox going into year 2. There's a lot of youth, and this guy, he's been around. He's seen some things. He made a Pro Bowl. So this cat can play, and you're adding to his strength, and I really enjoy that. So the last question I have, you went to North Texas, correct?
Yeah. Proud.
All right. I remember, and I know the draft show. I watched the draft show. I listened to you. This question is for my man Nino. So my man Nino, he's the guy. He's the T2T guy with the shirts. So he wants to hook you up. So I got to hook him up. He likes Jalen Darden. I know you like Jalen Darden. All right. So he's down there in Tampa Bay.
Let's do it.
We think there's good. Go ahead. Sell us on Jalen Darden in Tampa this year.
Man, I hate it because he's still under contract, and I can't really talk about him that much.
Oh, dang. Yes.
I don't want to get in trouble for tampering, even though I have zero say whenever it comes to the roster building of this team. Right. I think it's phenomenal. I really do. I like Jalen Darden a lot from a speed standpoint. He's Kevontae Turpin, but in my eyes, he's better than Kevontae Turpin. He could be a return man. He's not as smooth as a return man, but he's better as a wide receiver. He's a scorer, a guy who broke the North Texas single-season touchdown record and career touchdown record. I mean, he's a shifty player. He's a little bit smaller, kind of like a Turpin. He's bigger than Turpin, but he's smaller like him. That's really the biggest thing for him is he's got to find a role in that Tampa Bay offense with so many guys around him. Julio Jones, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. I mean, goodness gracious, where is he going to find any snaps? He was a 4th-round pick a couple years ago. Could he be on the trade block? Maybe. If he was on the trade block, hypothetically, I would love that. I mean, you need a slot receiver. You need a guy that's a flanker, is what Mike McCarthy called it, as CeeDee Lamb's going to play.
We're talking about this for fantasy football purposes right now.
Just hypothetically. I think he would be fantastic in an offense like that. He should be great in Tampa if he gets an opportunity. But this is his 2nd year in the league. Maybe he gets a couple extra looks, but man, it's going to be tough with so many of those wide receivers around him.
Well, Mike Evans left practice, I think, yesterday with a hamstring injury. Godwin's back out there, but he's got the big knee brace on. Everybody sees Julio Jones in the 85 jersey. They think he looks thick. So we're going to see them early on. We're going to see them week one. We're going to know if Jalen Darden's going to be in that offense. But my man Nino's telling me he's a Patriots fan, all right? So he's been watching Tom Brady, and he tells me Tom Brady doesn't target guys in practice that he's not going to target in the game. And supposedly him and Darden have a little thing going on. So that might be so maybe Kyle, maybe I can help you out here. So maybe when you get into your fantasy leagues this year, maybe you take a late round flyer on your man Jalen Darden.
I would already have done that. I used to draft Jeff Wilson, who's with San Francisco.
Yep.
He doesn't like their third running back on the depth chart. I would draft him anyways and put him in there. I mean, yeah, there's not a whole lot of guys from North Texas that I get to draft in fantasy. So when I get a chance to do so, I'm usually on top of it. But yeah, I think as a fantasy option, he may be kind of a sleeper that if, hey, let's say Julio doesn't turn out to be what he wants to be. I mean, Evans isn't healthy. Godwin's a little banged up. He would be that top target or one of the top targets on that Buccaneers roster. That could be interesting.
Excellent, man. So we finished with some Bucks talk, but that wraps it up. That's full circle. It's week one. All right. So week one, man, football's almost here.
It's on its way. And I mean, with everything that's happened behind me here these last couple of weeks, it's getting to the point where you're itchy. You're like, man, I just need this football back. I need it happening because we're going to get the preseason. That'll kind of scratch that itch for a little bit. But then after the second preseason game, you've already seen a couple of them. I mean, you're going to want to get into football again, real life, physical football. It's going to be fun, and I'm excited to be along for the ride.
Heck yeah, man. Me and the boys from Toilets to Titles. I'm taking my son Emmett. We're going out to Canton for the Fantasy Football Expo next week. So we got football going on. We're going to be at the Hall of Fame. So all sorts of good stuff. But Kyle, man, it has been absolutely incredible having you on. This is the second time this off season. You've been very gracious with your time. I love talking Cowboys with you, and then also the surroundings. You're there. I feel like I'm there for the last 40 minutes being able to talk to you, man. So thank you so much for coming on this evening.
Yeah, anytime you need me, let me know. I'm glad of it and to title. So I need I need the T-shirt. Like you said, Nino needs to send the T-shirt my way, and I'll be able to sport it.
Heck yeah, and then everybody can ask you what does that say, and then you'd be like, man, that's these guys, they know their stuff. So I appreciate that, Kyle. So everybody listening at home, we appreciate you. Hope you got a lot out of this episode. I know I did. If you like the show, it'd be greatly appreciated. You support us. Check out the Patreon, patreon.com/Toilets to Titles. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, like and comment, all that good stuff. And we will catch you all Tuesday evening for the regular show. Take care.